Hello. On this episode, I will speak with Shlomo Freund, who has done at least a dozen deals buying primarily content websites for himself and his clients. He also started and exited a company in China, and he is traveling with his kids as a lifestyle. And we talk about investments, about buying businesses, about China and travel, and also what the future holds for us. Hi, Shlomo.
Great being here. Thank you very much for inviting me. Very cool.
Yeah, cool. So it was interesting that we kind of met by chance offline, but like a couple months ago, I think, right? But
2 months ago.
we've spoken before online, so I recognized your name, but I've never seen you in person before.
And then we bumped into each other.
Yeah, and then we kind of bumped into each other. Yeah, so like what's your background? How did you get into business first?
So let's say I studied electrical engineering, but my parents are entrepreneurs. They both had agencies, real brick and mortar agencies. So a travel agency and real estate agency and insurance agency. So that was in our home, being an entrepreneur and grinding in the business the whole time. So I guess this is where things came from. And I'm mentioning this because as long as I remember myself, even when I had a day job back in the days in electrical engineering, which I don't do anymore, I always had now they call it side hustle, but a project, something that I'm working on, something that I'm doing, which is unrelated to my day job. I kind of had to do that. So maybe that is the entrepreneurship that is built in from the previous generation, maybe. So that's the context of where I'm coming from in my professional life and where I'm at right now, and for many years being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's very cool. My parents had like a more traditional background. So my mom was a doctor, my father was an engineer, but then he also got into entrepreneurship later in life. But I felt like I was, by being an entrepreneur, by getting into business, I felt like I was mostly kind of stepping out of what was expected of me. Was it very different from you? Were you like were your parents expecting you to kind of get into business?
So my older brother went into the business, into the family business. He left eventually. I wasn't expected to go into the business. At least nobody told me so. Maybe this is why they I went to the engineering school. So I'd say that there weren't any expectations. Was like, okay, this is the right way for you. But as I mentioned before, it's kind of stronger than stronger than me of, what happens in the family and what you see in the day to day. And I am actually, and I'm an entrepreneur. That's the story.
And so what was your first business your first entrepreneurial venture?
So I have my professional one, more professional one, but my childhood one was, I remember that as a kid, I learned. So I was the kind of kid that reads the finance section of the newspaper first every day. That was the one. Also my twin sister. This is the one we liked. And I found out that you can exchange money, Israeli shekels, to US dollars. And every day the exchange rate changes. So I had my few shekels and I told my parents, I remember we had a note, and on the note I had the number of shekels that I have. And then I would read the rate the next day in the newspaper and would decide if I will exchange it to dollars or not. And this is how it happened every time. So it was kind of not day trading, but day-to-day trading. So that was kind of my first way of making money. In a way, entrepreneurial, but yeah, not really opening a business. I think that the first main one was when I bumped into an ebook. I don't remember its name these days, but basically it taught you to earn from affiliate marketing through Google Ads. So you can do this anywhere anymore these days. But basically, you'd run Google Ads with certain keywords, funnel them into ClickBank offers, and then basically hope for conversions and, optimize and stuff like that. I remember my biggest success was let me think, there was an online watching service for, was there a World Cup in South Africa at some point? Something
so,
like
yeah.
that. So these were the best days. I started that service. I sold that service through Google Ads, and in one day I made I don't know $970 something, if I remember, 73 I think. And I was like, wow. So for me it was a thing, and I had a day job at that time. It was one of those things but this is a memorable thing because that was a success.
So did you make a profit with exchanging shekels to dollars and back? Like, did you make a profit? Did you consider the commissions? How old were you?
No. That is the excuse me. So the ClickBank and the Google Ads was already one as a grown up. That was when it was, I don't know, 24, 23, something like that, 25, around that age. But no, the exchanging dollars to shekels was just something that I remember as a child of doing. Oh, and also I worked at my parents' office, but then I was an employee. I was paid. I was doing their putting all the papers in the folders of the different clients of the agency, and of course every summer we went to work there. So it's kind of being in the family business. The entrepreneurial, the money exchange, I think was very early. I think like 7, 8, 9, something like that age.
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of did something similar while I was growing up in Russia, Soviet Union at the time, and I sort of instinctively realized that the Russian ruble was a lot less stable than the US dollar. So I basically told my parents to give me birthday gifts, just give me dollars for birthday gifts, and then I collected them and I saved them, and so I developed an affinity for dollars very early. I did not
get
trade. I didn't
dollars
really US
in
dollars.
Russia
Yeah,
back in the days?
yeah, I think that was after the fall of the Soviet Union, so like very early 90s. Also when I was like 7 or 8 or so. I didn't really have any opportunities to trade or invest anything, which is, yeah. So it, but I was studying that a lot, and I was really curious about that stuff. And so with the affiliate marketing and Google AdWords, like how long did that last? Were you able to make enough money from that to potentially quit your job?
So I couldn't quit my job. I remember it lasted for probably about a year or so. And I think then Google turned off this opportunity. You couldn't do that anymore. And also it was very hard to track the exchange, the CTR, how things work. It was very, very hard. Everything was manual. So that was not my exit, but there were nice successes there for a while. I remember also when I traveled in Nepal, and that was also after, was that right after? Yeah, that was right after my first trip to China. But in Nepal, I started in a drop shipping business from Kathmandu, selling decorative, traditional kukuri knives. So these are Nepali knives, and they're decorated and they're beautiful. And people bought that on eBay. And I didn't own any of those. I just drop shipped. So I went to the stores there and I told them, and I went to somebody who ships them. And, I put everything together. And I did that for a while. That also didn't made a huge exit. I mean, I did sell some, but again, tracking the exchange rates and the different fees and all that, I was probably making some money, but I don't know what the margins were because the calculation was so all over the place. But that was another good experience with entrepreneurship back in. And I was waiting for a friend in Kathmandu until he came, so I had time. So I was just searching for stuff. I remember then starting selling more products, not only those knives, but these were not as successful. So trying different things of what's going to work in the internet space back then. That was in 2007. The eBay dropshipping business started there.
Was it difficult to get people in Nepal to ship in and to set up all the logistics? Presumably your clients were in US. buyers?
Yeah, they were in US and Australia mainly, as far as I remember. I still have the account. I can check that. Interesting. But I'd say the logistics in Nepal wasn't that hard. So there are several stores. You just went to the store. You tell them, I want a wholesale price. They gave me a wholesale price. I had basically pages with tables of the different knives, and I had pictures. And I had another table of the shipping company, and I could choose which shipping company, and then just let them know this is how it worked. And then when I wanted to start more products, I basically went to another store and started taking pictures because the kukuri knives already had pictures, so that was easier. The other store, with other products, which didn't have, so I had to work more. So this I remember was much more complicated for me, basically.
So was there a good margin? Like the price that you sold at compared to the price that you were getting from the suppliers?
I think I started with about 100% margin on each knife. But then you have the eBay fees and you have the exchange rates and you have all that. And as I mentioned, that was hard to measure. I guess back then I didn't continue with that. Maybe I should have, because there wasn't huge numbers of sales. Yes, there was, but I could probably optimize and continue with that. But then probably something else grabbed my attention. I don't remember exactly. So it wasn't big enough to keep going with that. But I probably sold around once every few days, so probably 10 to 20 a month, something like that.
Okay. And what was your next business? How did you, was it the time when you moved to China?
So I didn't move so right before Nepal, I didn't really move. I went on a trip to study Chinese for 2 months in a city called Dalian, that's in northeast China. And my brother-in-law at the time wanted his kids to learn Chinese. And I joined them for that trip for 2 months, 2-something months. So we're sitting there every day with a private tutor. Each one of us had their own tutor. And I've learned Chinese, I learned Mandarin. So that was for 2 or 2.5 months. They left. Then I had to leave. Then I moved to Nepal and had a whole trip and what we talked about with that new business. But China stayed there the whole time. So I wanted to maintain my Chinese. Coming back afterwards from that trip, to Israel, I'd say 2008. I started working for, excuse me, for a homeland security company, and I worked there for almost 2 years. So I had a day job back then. I'm kind of trying to think, what was my side business when I was working with them? Because I always remember I had something. What did I do? I know. So I started dating with now my wife, and we decided to open a Chinese learning books store in Israel. Not a real one, just online, to basically sell those books. So I started sourcing from China, samples and stuff like that. We went to what was that? Books exhibition in Frankfurt. And I remember that we met the distributors and people from China there. So we got some of the samples there. So all kinds of things happening. That was a total failure, really. It was, so there started to be a hype in Israel for Chinese, and yes, numbers have gone up, but it was kind of too early. And later on, I mean, we closed the business, we stopped with this before that, but it was still an interesting experience. And I wouldn't do this again. It was too much. I don't know. The market is too small. This is what I've learned with this one. So we moved on. I had a webinar business called China Business Webinars. I still have the domain for doing China business webinars for people. So interviewing interesting people about business in China. So I did that too during that period. No idea if that's still online or not. Probably can fix it and put everything back. I really don't remember. So yeah, that was another thing that I did. Yeah, but then China became a thing. China became a thing for me personally. And it became a thing more in the world, not as much as today, where there's more confrontation between the West and China. It was a different time.
So how did you start your company in China?
So after a year after we got married, we decided that we want to move and see how it is to live in China. We had basically we were pretty much almost broke, and we decided that it's we want to try and see how it is. And I already had my China background. Um, I went to study Chinese. I had some relationship, but something happened. Okay, so we moved to Beijing. I joined one entrepreneurship program there. I don't remember the name of that one, but that was for about 2 months or something like that. And through that, I got to know more entrepreneurs, foreign entrepreneurs in Beijing. This is where we lived, and there was a big entrepreneurial scene of foreigners coming to China to build companies. There was also a kind of a, let's say, parallel scene, parallel world of Chinese entrepreneurs. They didn't too much connect actually in Beijing. But anyway, through that program, I became one of the community leaders of foreign entrepreneurs in Beijing. I had a website called Startup Noodle, where I spoke about, again, business in China and my experiences. I had a podcast with maybe you know Mike Michelini called China Business Cast for a few years. That also started a little later. But on that program, I started a business and that was a business for helping people stop procrastinating and check off their tasks of the day and have somebody to be accountable for. That didn't work. However, at the time, because I was leading the community, how I led the community, there was one guy who was running a meetup group. Then he left, so I started leading that group, and we had weekly or monthly events. I think we even have weekly events, and there were a lot of people coming. And then that guy came from Israel, and he said, "You're working on that idea, but what you need is something simple. You need a one page with a big buy button at the bottom, and that's it, and make it work." I said, okay. And then he proposed an idea. How about there is app market in China is very, very fragmented. There are about 400 app stores. Okay. So, and Google is blocked in China. So there is Google Play, but it's very small and basically blocked. Instead of that, there are so many other stores. How about you help companies navigate through this and help them distribute their app in the Chinese market? Like, okay, that's interesting. It took about 2 months to do the research, to have a website. And through my peer connections, I managed to get some news coverage on some websites talking about business in China that were in English. And I had a chat, basically not service, but I was the chat box on the website. And any visitor on the website, I was just sitting and, started chatting with them, started having a conversation, kind of learning their market. And there were some successes from that, basically clients coming in and want to have their app distributed in the Chinese market. So that was really cool.
So explain, what's the difficulty? Let's say I'm somebody that has the app in App Store or for Android. Like, what's the challenge with putting it on the Chinese market? Can't I just go and upload it to whatever the Chinese equivalent to Apple Store is?
So we're not talking, back in the days, we're not talking about iOS. We're only talking about Android. There are 400 Android stores. We had a ranking of which are the biggest one. The biggest one was around 25% of the market. And there were many others. And also, it doesn't mean that if somebody has one store on their phone, they maybe have 5 on their phone. So it's some kind of an overlap. And yes, with some stores and Google Translate and all that, you might be able to upload to some of them. But if you really wanted to do, managing this whole thing, and, our biggest package was distributing to 20 stores, you had to handle this. And, go
So
to each one
the
of them.
stores, what are those stores? Are this basically the equivalent of like Android Marketplace and Apple Store? Or like, because like
It's
in
equivalent to
the
Google Play, yes.
like we only have two, right? In the West, basically in the English speaking countries most, like you don't really have any others, right? So that's why the concept sounds strange
You have
to us.
smaller ones. I mean, Samsung has a store, but it's not significant like others. But in China, Google Play is insignificant.
It's
So
interesting. And
that's
is
the
that
reason.
still the case today? Like what
Yes, still the
percentage
case
is
today.
Google Play and Apple Store China
So I don't know what the numbers
roughly?
are currently.
Like less than 10?
I remember back then it was less than 1% or 2% or something.
Okay. So you were helping people bring the app, like, but also don't they have to translate everything to Mandarin to get the app, everything, like
They
every
have
single page translated? And did you help with
they
that
have
too?
to do. We mostly got. We told them you need to prepare everything, and then we would do the service for you. It starts. So as I mentioned, some of the stores you could have done the upload yourself, but then when the apps start to get rejected and they ask for different stuff, and it's Chinese, and you really don't know what to do. It's like this is the one. Many times when they called us. Nowadays, it's much, much more complicated. It's a totally different animal. I remember back in the days, I was afraid that at some point we wouldn't be able to serve our clients. What will we do? Because the regulations kept changing, and it became harder and harder and harder. But company still exists,
So
and that
can you
started
give an
2013.
example of, could you give an example of something like one of the regulations that something that would be quite difficult to do by yourself? Like if I wanted to put it in the Chinese stores, why I would
So
want to use your service?
So first of all, some categories you really cannot do without being served or under a Chinese company. So
Okay.
you have to go through that. And then some categories you need to have special certification, and then you need to apply through government or any of that. So that's another process. I don't think there is no process nowadays like it used to be that you just upload and that's enough. It's not the case anymore. It's really not the
Okay.
case anymore. It's
And
become
so
very, very
what
complicated.
was your cost? What was your price for a customer to, you said initially it was for 20 stores. How much did it cost for the
I
client?
think we charged one time for around $1,000, something like that, for 20 stores. We had a 5, 10, and 20 package, and then we changed to 5, 10, and 15. And after a while, I don't remember how long after, probably a year and a half, we changed to a recurring yearly fee and not a one-time fee. So we started doing that. Funny enough, even big companies came to us, even in the early days, with the help with the market. We probably could have charged much, much more than what they didn't care. They didn't care.
And
but the closing took a while.
Did you have competition? Were there other companies doing the same thing at the time?
Yes, there were other companies, and maybe they are today. I stopped following, doing the other similar services. But as far as I know of today, and again, I'm not at the market research part anymore. I think we are, let's say, one of the largest, if not the only one, that is foreign-faced company that does this service. There are other Chinese ones that do it. So we're very happy at the point of where we got to right now, of course.
Very good. So you found an opportunity, you created a service, and the company has continued to grow. So you expanded, and then you started hiring some people to help you.
Yes, so already early in the days, I remember I hired the first person, and that was basically a freelancer, because I just told him, I'll pay you per store of what you distribute. And then I grew to having an employee, and then we had 2 employees. And I remember that was really hard, actually, to do that. Managing the employees, for me, it was difficult. I just started hiring. It was my first hires ever. I guess I just wasn't good at that back then. You can argue if I'm good at that today, but that's not the point. I'm saying back then, I was very inexperienced with this, and I could have maybe not chosen the right people for the right roles.
Were you hiring people in China? What's it like to hire a Chinese compared to
So I lived
others?
in Beijing. I hired locally people who came to the office every day from a friend's apartment. This is where the company started. And basically, excuse me, you hire people. I was unexperienced. It's basically having the interviewing a few people. You need to make sure that they have good English. And fortunately, they had good English. If not, I wouldn't be able to communicate good enough. My Mandarin is not that. I remember there were challenges more after the hiring. So different things that I thought were okay and they were not okay, managing expectations, contracts, things like that. It was a startup, a tiny company. You're just doing what you think is right. It's not that there is a recipe for the right way to do that, to do things, I mean.
So is there some aspects of hiring people, of managing a company in China that are very different from, let's say, in US, Europe, that, somebody like me would find very surprising, for example, that I have almost no experience in China?
So, listen, companies, my wife worked for a Chinese company. She was hired probably to be the foreign face of the company, but she was the only foreigner there. And she felt very, I'd say Chinese employees, at least at the time, have very different personality on the way that they work in high tech versus the West. And this is something that back in days we had to learn and manage. I from you still need to manage the relationship and it's still your employees, but it's I just did the best I could. If there will be something that would surprise you, I wouldn't say this. I would just say it's just a different people with different culture. That's basically it. This is what you need to manage. It's just a different way of management. I'd say that.
Okay, cool. And so I understand that you exited the company at some point, right? You sold a controlling share in it. How did that happen? Did you originally have a partner, or were you, how did it all happen?
So I have a partner who was interested in getting more involved in the business, and it took a while. But basically, after I left China, I had a manager that I hired for the time of that company, and after about a year and a half or 2 years, he stepped in to manage the company, and he does it. He does it since, and part of that was an acquisition process.
And so how did you transition from that to buying some businesses or helping people buy websites and online businesses?
So it wasn't that natural to move from that business to acquiring digital assets. I remember back in the early days, I looked at buying things on Flippa and stuff like that, but that was too scammy for me and what everyone thought of. So I didn't do that. But after I wasn't involved in the Chinese company, in App in China, I was very interested in investments. And I've done that through all that period that we talked about until today, and personal finance. So I opened a coaching business for financial coaching for people. And that ran for several years. And I found so I worked with people and doing financial coaching. And then I started talking about investment and things that they can do. And I kept talking about investing in digital assets because I got so interested in that. So I moved to consulting with helping buying digital assets. So that was from that financial coaching leading into also doing this kind of consulting, because at the time it was a good business to invest in. We're not talking about these days. We're talking about 4 or 5 years ago. You get 30% cash flow a year on your whatever you invested. So there are some good opportunities out there. Now you're getting better cash flow, but the risk has changed dramatically. So you need to find other, there are other strategies or things you need to look into when buying one. But that was the transition. I had the financial coaching and like talking to people, and you can buy digital asset that make da 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 da, and you can do this. Here's another opportunity. Here's another opportunity. That's like, I really like doing that and checking out those digital assets and looking at those different deals. And I already acquired, I think, 1 or 2 of my own back then. So this is how it all started.
How did the financial coaching work? Like, who were your clients? Were people, would they be entrepreneurs or just people that had some jobs and wanted to save money? Or I'll give you some examples maybe. And what kind of things did you teach them?
So I really there wasn't one type, I'd say, but people came, or my tagline and the people I wanted to work with is when people saw that their life were unbalanced of their finances and what they're hoping to achieve. And the process was helping them, first of all, understand what their goals are. So I would go and we go through an exercise and worksheet, and we go through that and understanding what these are. And of course, they need to know what their expenses are and what their cash flow is, and see if there is a difference between the two. And then all the access between those, all that margin would go into investment. And then the next stage would be, okay, what do you want in the next 20, 30 years for yourself? And maybe if you want to help your kids with an apartment or whatever you think about, just put it all out there and let's build a plan for you of that excess money that you have, what you need to invest according and what return and according to what cash flow you have, so you can build it for yourself. So let's say somebody wanted to buy a boat for himself within 10 years. So you'd basically, let's say 15 years. So you'd calculate, okay, probably for 15 years horizon of investment, let's say with S&P 500, which makes an average of 8% a year, you can put an 8% on a number that you will invest every month and then get to that goal within 15 years. So this kind of thinking towards all your goals in life. And then you need to see if the cash flow that you have right now actually matches all your goals. And if not, then you just need to start play around either with maybe more riskier investments, maybe say, okay, some of my goals I postpone, stuff like that. That was the process with thinking.
Cool. And so people paid for that. But
people paid for that.
Like, was it an hourly or like a monthly kind of subscription thing?
It was a package of 5 or 6 coaching session, and in between there were they had homework. I even also had one client doing a yearly thing. So every month after the intense program of 5-6 weeks, then we had a monthly call where I helped her with their goals. So that was also kind of helping her. And that was interesting because more and more people who work remotely came. So that was my audience, people that I like hanging out with, the digital nomads. So that was really nice. Traveling lifestyle, as you mentioned before. So that was a nice thing too.
And so you mentioned that you also got into investments yourself during that time, right? So how did, what kind of investments did you do? How did that go for you? What were you focusing on?
So throughout the years, I've done all kinds. I've kind of like trying and look at the different kinds of investment. At the beginning with no experience, 20 years ago, it was basically I took a course about options, about the stock market. And then it was, okay, let's buy this, let's buy that. It was just trying. But then it got to be some things became more systematic, I'd say. I also tried crowd investing about 5 or 6 years ago in the European market. I think the one that is the most structured is the value investment that I do till today. I think I've been doing this for more than 10 years now, or around 10 years. So basically we're talking about not technical analysis of graphs with specific stocks, or not day trading. We're talking about very slow process of evaluating a company and then decide if this is the right price for it. Now, I don't do it myself. I prefer to do other things. So I decided that I will kind of buy that service, outsource that. So I found someone that I trust and follow his analysis and what he suggests to do at the market and the stocks that he buys and sells. Basically what I do with value investing for the past, again, I think it was about 10 years, maybe even more. So that's very systematic with my portfolio, I would say that.
Right, cool. And how did you get started with buying some content websites, offering it as a service? How did that go from?
So I bought several sites myself that was the right size for me. But as I was looking at deals, I found that I subscribed on all the newsletters and reading everything about that and really learning about this process. And I remember throughout the first buying of the first asset, and it took about 4 or 5 months to really, you never stop learning, but, feeling confident enough to say, okay, I'm okay with this, being able to buy something. And I also lost a few deals because I was too slow or technical problems or any of that. So this is also part of the learning process. Anyway, my point is that, okay, I can probably help other people going through the same process and cut the time and helping them find better deals. I am now moving a bit away from doing individuals and more doing this for companies. And we mentioned before, I'm doing for e-com companies because I see that there is more opportunity there for helping companies with these kind of strategic acquisitions. But for me, it all started with me enjoying and looking through the process of analyzing deals. I also do that on my YouTube channel. There are almost 100 public deals out there, so people can look and see if what's the process for assessing a deal, the good things, bad things, easy wins, pitfalls, things like that. I hope that that's helpful for people going into the market and helping them, because I really believe, even though the market is down right now, there are always opportunities. It's just a matter of finding them. I remember my best buy wasn't really, it wasn't a big buy, but it was kind of finding a gem in a haystack, that this is how it felt, because you find something and I was like, how can that be that this websites make that little? Now the story goes, I'll go to the end, that HCU happened, so helpful content update of Google happened, and I thought that this website would have no problem with that, but it was hit. Okay, so overall it wasn't a success, but at the time it was really undervalued, and I still think I can do nice stuff with it. There still has potential there. It's a quotes website, so basically people who coin their own quotes. It's not famous quotes, and you can do a lot with the content there, because a lot with the content that is in there. There are about 250,000 quotes there of people. I get emails from people using it, and I know that they like it. So although the website crashed, there's still, core of users and traffic in there. So I still think I can do with that. Work on that project. But anyway, that was kind of like, it's unbelievable what this website is and the price that it was sold for. So yeah, there are always opportunities, just a matter of finding them. But I looked through many, many, many deals until finding that one.
Cool. And so how do you help people buy a website? Can you give an example of somebody with a commerce business and how would they actually benefit from buying a content site in the same niche? How would that actually work? Like in practical terms,
let's say that you have a coffee brand, and that coffee brand sells and runs ads on whatever. It can be Amazon ads or any other ads, and they have some ad spend. Now they are on the hamster wheel of keep spending on ads. And they have their margin, and they're dependent on the ads. They have, the price goes up, go up, go down. They need to keep following with this. However, what they can do is buy a digital asset related to coffee. Let's say newsletter about coffee or content website about coffee. That asset holds their target audience. So instead of keep spending on ads, they can do that one time and acquire that asset. Maintain that asset, that's a different story, but they still need to do that. However, they'll have potentially this audience forever. So they can either do it in addition or even replace their ad spend on the by buying that digital asset. That's the gist of it.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, so it's interesting. We've done something similar a few years ago. Basically, the opposite of that. We had a bunch of content websites on coffee, and a lot of them were promoting Amazon products from Amazon through the Amazon Associates program. And we looked into setting up an e-commerce brand, but that was kind of too complicated. So in the end, and we also had a bunch of other sites that were promoting Amazon, like in beauty niche and other niches. And so we found some sellers on Amazon who had products, and then kind of made a deal with them to just promote their products. And we ended up getting practically double, because they would basically double our commission rate. As for them, it was so valuable just to have their product as the main one we were promoting, compared to the relatively small Amazon affiliate commissions. So that was quite an interesting discovery for me at the time. I remember it was quite sort of kind of shocking that you can really just suddenly double your revenue from simply, connecting to the people directly and like discussing it and, getting some extra money for putting their products on top. And so that also showed me that there is quite a wide margin between what content sites earn and what an e-commerce business would earn, and in that same industry. So I wonder if you've ever looked at the numbers, what, for coffee, for example, or some other brand, like what kind of, like if you look at the traffic, let's say, you have 100,000 visitors from the content site that's probably monetized with like AdSense or some affiliate ads or AdThrive, and then you put that traffic to an Amazon store, like what would be the difference in conversion rate? Or how would you, what's the increase that they can get from it in terms of revenue?
So I can't say specifically, just because every case is different, and I don't know what the audience of that specific asset will be. So it's very hard to measure. Part of the process of finding that asset is understanding, or maybe you can first do a test with the potential asset that you're buying. Hopefully they agree.
From your examples, from your experience, whatever niche, whatever website, like what were the differences based on what you've looked at? Just to give us an idea.
So I've run some models with a very reasonable conversion rate of 1%, and basically the numbers can add up. For an e-commerce, I specifically checked with coffee as well, but it can be for any. I don't remember what the conversion. I remember there are some. So there is the common conversion rate for different niches. I remember I looked at it at the time, but really long time ago, so I can't tell right now what the numbers are. It will probably be a good thing to do and then compare that. Do you know any of those numbers? I don't remember those.
Sure, of course. Yeah, it's easy to calculate.
Yeah.
Usually for, for AdThrive, for AdSense, like the RPM you'd get would be for an average niche, maybe like $10, $20 per 1,000 views. If it's like more targeted, better niche, maybe like you get to $30-$40 if it's like at Thrive or higher value network. With e-commerce, I don't know as well, but with like affiliate sites, you might get to like $50 to $100 per 1,000 visitors.
Yeah,
So
you
what would
definitely
you
saw
get
those numbers.
with an e-commerce website? What would you
So
do? You have some kind of idea of how much you would generate in profit basically from an e-commerce site from 1,000 visitors?
So here's what I found out after speaking with e-commerce brands. They care about cost of customer acquisition and not so much about what people with content websites are the margins. Yeah, they care about the margins or the cash flow. And once you help them lower that number, then, they understand the potential there. So and with those models that I mentioned, you can show that within 3, 4, 6 months after the initial investment, basically the customer acquisition costs go below what they're paying. And I've run with some real examples of people I've talked with.
So they can get their money back in like half a year, something like that?
Yeah.
From redirecting the traffic to their website?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
And
really
we run
good
a few
then.
we run a few models with some conversion rates. There is a target conversion rate. It wasn't crazy high. I think we did between 1% to 2%. So I still think it's okay.
So then assuming you probably pay like 2 or 3 times the profit, 2 or 3 times the annual profit, and you get it back in like 6 months. So that's what, like 5 times, 4 or 5 times basically better monetization for that, in that sense.
And also from what I'm seeing happening at the SEO world right now, people say, now that you have a content website and they're down because of AI and Google, add an e-commerce to that website, and that will probably bump back the website up. So it makes so much sense to bring an e-commerce brand buying this. It's a great opportunity.
And how do you do it practically? Do they redirect the traffic? Do they like put some affiliate links to their website, or do we try to like implement it somehow into the WordPress design of the content site?
There isn't really a one way to do that. We both know there are so many ways to, all the way that you monetize an affiliate site, you can put in the brand or whatever that is to promote the products. However, one thing that now with the SEO changes need to be done is make that content website branded as the e-commerce brand as much as possible. I think this helps SEO wise because you're building a brand. So it will be having a PR page out there. This and this coffee brand bought, I don't know, greatcoffee.com and all that, just to, they will be out there and then, do sponsorships, putting their ads on the newsletter. A side note, many content websites, and I don't understand how is that forgotten, don't build newsletters and don't build lists, I meant. And that's for me is leaving money on the table, because this is where, the money is on the list. People, you get in touch more again and again with your audience. So it makes sense. It just takes more than just connecting that ad network out there. So it's harder, but long term, of course, it pays up.
So how do they operate the content website? Do you manage it for your clients, or like do you teach them? Do you help them find somebody?
So I won't manage that for clients. What I prefer to do, so the asset that they bought makes money. So they don't have to take out money from their pocket. It works with, the numbers need to add up, of course. So you need to buy a big enough website that will make enough cash flow to do the maintenance. But once you get to that price point, I'd say now it's around $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. Then you're either able to hire somebody to do this in-house. You are able to hire an agency to do that, or more complicated, but also possible. And maybe you've done some of those, Michael, partnerships with an operator to do these kind of, to run these content or affiliate sites for our brand. Because I agree, this is not their core expertise. They need this new skill. The easiest one would be just go with an agency that is good enough and that will run it for you. So maybe it won't do the best job because, again, this is not their business. This is not their own business. They're giving a service, but it would be good enough to maintain at least at the level that the company bought that asset. So the model will keep working. That's the idea.
All right, very cool. So anything else you want to share or talk about that I didn't ask you yet today?
So I asked me before about traveling, and I wonder if you want to talk about that.
Yeah. So you're traveling with kids, right? With 2 kids. And you're kind of like
3 kids.
traveling for a few years now, on and off consistently. So how do you manage that?
So we are doing, I have 3 kids now. When we started, we had 3
3.
girls.
Yeah.
And the first trip was to Chiang Mai. I'm now in Chiang Mai, and that was a 2-month trip. And now we're with 3. So we do around once a year for a few months, traveling for a few months. It started with 2 months a year, and now it's around 4 or 5 months a year. We manage our schedule between me and my wife because we both work and we do homeschooling. But it doesn't matter where we are in the world, either in Israel or some other place. So we switch during the day around noontime. She either me working in the morning or she's working in the morning, and then the rest of the time the other one is with the kids. This, I'd say, works mostly, but some days are not so much, either because we have calls in different hours or something have changed, or there are special plans, or somebody needs more time. So we're being very flexible with the times. And I think just like every family, there are just sometimes messy days where the schedule doesn't work, and that's okay too. So yeah, this is how we manage. I can also say that over the years, let's say the last 2, maybe 3 years, we try to go 2 years. We try to go more to places where there are other families. So there are hubs of it's called world schooling families that travel and homeschool. And then you can meet other families either at just the place itself. Let's say we were in a farmhouse in south of Spain for around 2 months, or an actual program. So somebody organized, we just came back from Phu Quoc in Vietnam. It's an island. And there was a 2-week program where we were in the resort. And every day there were activities of all the families in the island. So we did different things together. We explored the island together. So that was a lot of fun. And the kids, of course, always had company. They were running around the resort. We filled about half of the resort, and they were going to the swimming pool. They were playing. So that was a lot of fun. And generally speaking, just meeting other families that have a similar lifestyle as yours is really nice. So you're making new friends. Some of them actually coming back to Chiang Mai even today. So it's kind of nice. You meet them on the road again. So just I think it works.
So how does it affect the kids that they don't have the traditional environment of having the same friends, having the same school, kind of having the routine of going to school every day, and instead like they are traveling, they're in different country, different friends, different activities, different language?
I'd say that, so with the little ones, we have a 4 and 2, it doesn't matter that much at all. Also in Israel, they don't go to school. However, we do have a homeschooling community there. So my oldest one, now 9, yeah, she misses her friends and she misses the activities. But on the other hand, she also sees the positive things about meeting other friends on the road and seeing other cultures and learning other languages. She's now doing Spanish. She's very interested in Japanese because she did judo in Israel, and she also loves capoeira. So she's also very interested in going to Brazil and all that. So it's just like everything in life, it's a balance. So you understand that you can miss a place or a certain lifestyle, being in one place, but also do something else that is good for you. And she likes that. She's very used to that. Okay, this is her 7th, maybe 8th, no, 7th trip. Her first birthday, she asked us to have it at the airport in Israel. So we took the whole family to the airport. We sat at a cafe there. We brought a cake. We brought balloons. That was her birthday. So she's very accustomed to that.
I'm curious, how popular is that nowadays? Do you have some idea, like in Israel or worldwide, like what percentage of families of people actually do homeschooling? Would it be like a very small number or a substantial amount nowadays? Like less than 1%?
I don't know numbers. I don't think there is research about that, or I've never checked.
But like from the communities that you meet, for example, are they like small groups, or would it be communities of like hundreds or thousands of people when you try like in places like Chiang Mai or elsewhere?
So there are many groups, Facebook groups for traveling families. These can be thousands of people. I do know of families who travel together. So you asked about the community and, having the same friends. These are families moving together. We haven't done that yet. I know there was a group of 20 to 30 families living in Pai up 2 months ago. I think now they're in Vietnam. So people find their way of what works for them. So yeah, to your question, yes, there are becoming groups and communities in different forms of this lifestyle. And number-wise, it's hard to say.
What about like the legal aspect of that? Isn't there some kind of requirement that the kids have to attend school, or not really?
So it depends on your home countries. Some countries forbid homeschooling whatsoever, many European countries, and therefore this is the reason that some of those families are leaving and prefer to travel. We hear that. Some countries are very loose, like the US. You just let the ministry know they're homeschooled. That's it. And some are in between, like Israel. So you have to ask for a permit every year, and there is a home visit to be homeschooled. And then you don't, if you travel or not, it doesn't matter to that extent because they're under your responsibility.
And as your oldest gets older, do you think you will have her attend school regularly, or do you plan to continue homeschooling basically all the way until like university if she chooses to go?
I don't mind if she'll be homeschooled throughout, how long she chooses, like really. For now, she doesn't want to, then doesn't say that she wants to go to a school. She's happy where she is. I see the progress and the things that she does, so we are happy with that too. I'm not saying there aren't challenges. Kids' education, there are always challenges and things you worry about. One of the challenges, is continuing the activities that he likes in Israel, but here. So she loves gymnastics and she did that in Israel. So he found a place here and she goes to that and she got a medal here and she went to a camp here. One thing we haven't found a solution for is capoeira, which she loves, but there isn't capoeira. And it's very hard to find in Asia in general. And in Chiang Mai, there isn't. So you win some.
And how old is she now?
She just turned 9.
And when she's in Israel, like, does she have a group of friends who are also homeschooled, or is she? Because I imagine it would be weird if she's hanging out with the regular kids that are in school all day, and then that might raise a lot of questions, like how are you not at school? How is that possible? Like, what do you do, and all those kind of things.
So she has friends going to school and also friends who are not going to school and they're homeschooled. I'd say most of her friends are homeschooled. Actually, one of her best friends from our town is now here in Chiang Mai, so that's very nice. They were also with us in Vietnam in Phu Quoc, so that kind of brings nice feeling of a friend from homecoming. It does bring weird questions, as you mentioned. I'd say she just knows there are kids who go to school and there are kids who don't go to school. She's okay with that. And yes, the kids who go to school, you can't go and visit in the morning time. They're in school now. Or they finish only at 3:00, so we can only go and do something after that time. So we usually meet them on the weekend then instead of that. This is how it works.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. That it's probably not that difficult to like make sure that your kid has a better environment versus the traditional schooling and gets a better education. So I think it's probably a pretty cool idea overall if you can manage the logistics. And I would imagine most people doing that, they probably have some type of business or some sort of remote job that allows them to travel and take care of kids at the same time, right?
So I'd say, let's say from the community or the people that we met in Phuket, so we're 10 families there. Some of them worked, but not the majority. We were surprised, at least in that group. Some of them just retired already. They travel. It's cheaper to travel than being in one place in many cases, or they found their way, and that works. And this is what they do. So of course, each family has their own. I know of in Asia you can retire a relatively low amount, so many people just keep traveling here.
Right, it's probably cheaper to even travel in Chiang Mai compared to living in Israel, because Israel is very expensive.
Yeah, I'd say living here for a family would be around $30,000 a year. In Israel, yeah, more than double, even more, I'd say, yeah. So definitely, and all the West, more expensive than here.
All right, very cool. So yeah, it's nice to chat with you, Shlomo. And how can people find out more about you? Where can they reach out to you online?
So I think the simplest way is I have a website with my name, shlomofreund.com, where we can just go, and then there is a link to all my social profiles and some of my projects and things that I worked on, the consulting business for e-commerce or individuals. My YouTube channel is there, so you can check that out. The LinkedIn, everything you need is over there.
All right, cool. Well, thanks, and see you next time.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting Michael. I'll see you soon.